After going through a conversation, I deduced the biggest thing is just misunderstanding and context. And when looking into like listening in relationships, I feel like the biggest thing we could have done is looking at each other's point of views. Like for him to look at me just coming back from class, I'd practiced that morning, obviously exhausted. He could understand where I'm coming from, but then also me coming from him, I could understand the way I was talking to him and how it could have felt like I was attacking him in a certain way. So the key ideas that I'm going to be going over from the talk that me and my roommate had is talking about context, emotion, listening, and phrasing. And I feel like that these are the four biggest tools when it comes to it. I recommend always looking back in the situation, looking at both sides and focusing on processing and doing active listening and being able to pick up social cues as well as asking questions instead of just mindlessly responding to each part. So especially at the start, I feel like we both come off pretty well. We're both talking about like the predicament we're in and how we're feeling, and but our context comes off a little bit cross because I'm talking about coming back from class asking him if he can take out the trash, but I did it in a way that he took out of context from the way I felt like unvalidated with how much I usually take out the trash, and he took that as an attack on him. And even though he still does it all the time, the way I phrased my words ended up going out of context and appealing to his emotions. So all these work hand in hand: context, emotion, and phrasing. So I feel like listening is the best way to combat all of these, and it's not as easy to take things out of context with listening. So after we had our banter back and forth of him basically saying that he feels like I'm invalidating him by saying, I always take out the trash, could you do it this time? I'm super tired, and like I'm making a bunch of excuses to go into it. So I felt like just maybe him sticking back and listening and saying, okay, I understand, and then putting out his input, and same thing with mine. And this is what active listening is. It's taking in what they're saying, evaluating it, and then putting it back out there and putting back your feedback so you can talk to them as well. I believe in both sides shouldn't rush into anything, and it's fine to defend your answer, not being defensive, but being able to like talk through how you're feeling is a way of defending, but in a good way where you're able to process each other's emotions. And at the end of mine, we ended up kind of going the stalemate of where we like phrase things weirdly, and our emotion got the best of us. We're both clearly irritated because I felt like that he was invalidating me, but at the same time from that I ended up invalidating him through the way I was putting things off in my phrasing and the way he was phrasing things back. And we ended up talking through it later. When we talked through it, obviously we used listening and talked about the context, and we ended up taking almost everything out of context. Me saying that I'm exhausted, could you do it? I always do. Like, I take out the trash quite a bit, was me just telling him like I feel like I'm really trying, I just can't do it today. And then him saying like he takes it out too is him saying that he does it sometimes as well. He's kind of tired of it also. So we both should have done better, I feel like, at the end of appealing emotions, doing active listening, and then working on our context and how we should phrase our words. So I feel like overall, in most things in disputes, especially like for this assignment, they're taking out of context or ended up being confusing for one side of the party compared to the other. I feel like active listening is one of the biggest ways to combat that, and then also putting yourself in the other's shoes and how they might be feeling.